Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the show. I'm Joe, and I get to play host again today. And you got to know that this is my absolute best part of my every week. Today, I have the great fortune and honor and privilege of being able to spend some time with the incomparable Dr. Adrien Bennings, president of Portland Community College. Dr. B, thank you so much for carving out some time in that busy schedule of yours to join us on the show today.
Well, thank you for having me.
I need to right out of the chutes. I've got to do something pretty obvious to the people that know you, and maybe to give a good fat reminder to the people that don't. You can fact check me on this if you would like. But I've never used the word elite in any of our podcasts. You can fact check that. You can go back and check the trend. I have not used that term, but I'm using it today. I'm I'm going to use it. You are an elite human, Dr. B. Um,
Oh.
here's the thing. You make the rest of us, maybe your team would agree with me, feel like we're just not working hard enough.
They probably feel that way. I do
Uh-huh.
push a little bit.
Let me ask you just straight up, what time did Revelry start playing, in the morning? What time did your alarm go off?
So actually this morning, no alarm because I got in late last night from a flight. So this morning was an off
Okay.
day, but I'm typically up with the birds before the birds at 3:45 in
Mm.
the morning.
Yeah, that's absolutely great. You eat elite, I think you sleep elite too. You just figure out different ways to sleep so you can get up
Yes,
during and do your time, right? You
yes.
work out elite. I've seen you out there. Yeah, you dress elite. You walk into the room and you just like, "Whoo!" There's just a standard that is set. I would call it almost like a dynamis that I it's hard to explain. It
Uh-huh.
just follows you into every room. Where does that come from, doc? What drives that never-ending pursuit for excellence?
Well, part of it, a lot of it can be attributed to just my upbringing and watching my parents, my mom and my dad model, just growth model, how they supported and loved people, but also modeling how they showed up in spaces and didn't let themselves be below the standard. And so I had a lot of that. My dad's military background also
Hmm.
I will say played a lot into that. He was very structured. I saw him in his crisp press uniforms, in the Air Force, and we had some rules around how to keep our room clean, how to fold the triangle, or whatever it's called on the edge of the bed sheet. And so I carried that into not only how I exhibit leadership qualities or exhibit, show up in the workplace, but I just pride myself on when I show up. I'm not just there physically, but I'm there in presence. And I want people to know that I'm there from the standpoint because there's something that I've got to leave in terms of legacy and impact and transformation.
So good. Yeah, that military background, I that explains a lot. It really does. And I think about those values that are emblematic to the ways that you when you first stepped on campus, what now, 3, 4 years ago?
I'm going 3 years in.
3 years in. I I mean, everybody should be straightening up when you walk by because there's just this expectation that I've felt in your presence as well, and leading Oregon's, largest post-secondary institution, I would imagine that those values do come in handy.
Yeah, the values come in handy because there's, as you mentioned, our size, given our size and our scope and our footprint, there's a lot of weight and there's a lot of pressure. And at the same time, there's a lot of people looking at me as a representative of PCC. So I'm under a microscope for good reasons, I'll say. But people are always watching because we are pretty sizable, but we have a well known reputation across the state.
Absolutely, and you are a West Texas gal, right?
You said it. Yes.
In your blood, big, bold, beautiful, all that comes fr fully equipped. I
Yes.
How are you bringing that spirit into Portland's unique cultural landscape?
Well, I think you said a couple of words that stood out to me that I bring here, and part of it is just the ism and quirks of just simply Adrian. But you said big and bold, and I'm just someone who is like not in terms of we can't do it. I'm like, why not? I'm like, let's just go for it. Let's just try. And so those are some things that I bring in my upbringing. But Texas, I'm a West Texas girl, and you might hear me saying y'all a couple times, and you might hear the twang slip out a little bit every now and then. But I'm just like, we have nothing to lose. And if we put off, what we could be moving towards, or if we put off a conversation or doing something, we could be
Yeah.
missing out on impact and outcomes beyond ourselves.
Yeah, so good, so good. I am rereading a book, Great by Choice, okay, by another elite, one of my favorites, Jim
Yeah.
Collins, one of many that he's written, right?
Hmm.
Uncertainty, chaos, and the luck why some thrive despite them all, right? You've lived the full spectrum. You've lived the full community college student, right? Check.
Yes.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Professional athlete?
Yeah.
Check. For real, folks. That's a legit check. Educator and now PCC's first, permanent female
Yeah.
president. That
Yeah.
is flipping amazing, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever surprised yourself?
Yes, from the standpoint that, you talked about when you mentioned about reading the book, the word chaos stood out. And I often respond to when people ask me, how has my journey been at Portland Community College, being the first and being the largest and all these things that come with it. And I've said it's been beautifully chaotic.
Mm,
And the way I've
mm,
surprised myself is, being faced with new challenges, being a second time president, but being faced with new challenges, new pressures, new demands, greater demands. And the surprise is not indicative of my lack of confidence or anything, but the surprise is that, ooh, that wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. Ooh, that was okay. Second win. I've got this. When I face it head on, it's like, sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, what is this? What is, how am I going
yeah.
to get through this? How am I going to navigate it? But I've surprised myself in demonstrating that there are things within me and there's a team around me that help to overcome and make even the challenges easier.
Mm.
Yeah.
And you don't know that until you actually step into it,
Yeah, that's
right?
right. That's
I
right.
see so many leaders that are, uh, for whatever reason, there's this knowing the right thing to do, but that gap between the
Mm,
courage to actually walk in and
yeah.
do that. And I think your voice and just who you are amplifies that, stepping into the ring always has risks,
Yeah.
but from your office, right, the rewards are um, actually quite necessary. We must.
Yeah.
If you're mission based, a mission based leader,
Yeah.
you can't lead off your back foot.
No backing down in this role either. You got to take, I use this statement, and it's because too, I'm from West Texas. Now, I've never ridden a horse and I've never wrestled bulls or anything like that, but I'm like, you got to take the bull by the horn.
Yeah.
There have been times where, this big old bull of a challenge and opportunity has tried to buck me off, but I've got the spurs digging in. I've got one hand up in the air. I may not have a lasso, but I'm like, let's do this. And so I'm not getting bucked off of this bull.
And people are watching, and that attraction to not you flipping around on a horse, but just the fact that you got on that horse, right,
Yeah.
and had the courage and the boldness to do what most people leadership isn't for everybody. I mean,
Right.
that's the principle, right? You have to be willing to step into those spaces, and once you do and see that you
Mm,
didn't, you're still standing, like
yeah.
Elton John says, right?
Yeah.
You're still standing.
There's
It
a
gives
song.
you the
Yeah.
courage to continue to do that
Yeah.
again and again. Hey, for the 5 people out there that might not know about PCC, it's a pretty unique institution.
Mhm.
Yes, it's very large, but it's also really unique and a very, very unique place on our nation's map. Tell us what makes it kinda stand out in some very good ways?
Well, I have to start with, in my mind, what is the most important that makes PCC unique, and that's its people. That's our faculty, that's our staff, that's our students, our employees, and they make it unique because they bring their unique experiences, they bring their lived experiences, and they bring their cultures and their backgrounds, and I think that to have an organization with such a beautiful mix of individuals that bring both challenges and opportunities make us distinctly unique.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
that's one thing. If you're looking for another thing, I would say that, being the largest institution in the state, PCC, over really the last 3 to 4 years, what's unique to this region as being the largest is having gone through such a significant change beyond the pandemic.
Right.
We've gone through a reorganization where we restructured our 4 campuses across 5 counties.
Did you pull
You
that
know,
off? Did you pull that off?
no, my beautiful predecessor, shout out to Mark Mitsui, spearheaded this one college reorg. And so when I stepped into this role, that was another unique opportunity for me to grab hold of. And we are still evolving through that. So that's another thing is this one college model um, is unique for PCC as a community college.
My
So,
my guess, boss, was when you entered into that field now of leadership, you still had a pretty big chunk of people that were not really, bought into that one campus thing, right? Still kinda live in, and you almost like when you get a new device, you wanna test all the buttons, you wanna push all the you may have had a lot of buttons pushed to see is she gonna establish this thing, or are we gonna go back to
right,
what where we once were. That's also, you don't always have to step in and be courageous. Sometimes you have to, like, just step in and continue to
right.
progress what it is that where you're building that momentum.
Yeah, and I've done more of that and just stepping in and building in momentum into some great things that have started before my tenure. And and then I've also sat back and listened and
Yeah.
heard some of the cultural joys and pride points and pain points. And then I've also implemented some new things. So it's been finding, I won't, the word balance has not really been conducive, but I would say really navigating when and where and at what pace of change. And there are still some in the college community at PCC who still have some hard feelings about the reorg. And the beautiful thing is you hear those and you still lean into the headwinds in terms of the changes that are needed to move us forward as a college.
Yeah, having the courage at times to actually be disliked, right? But we're
Yeah,
so in love with the mission, we're so in
yeah,
love with our values, we're so in love with the
yeah,
vision of where we intend to go,
yeah.
that at times we have to swallow hard and go, I have to have the courage to be disliked by a few people
And that's
on the
hard.
journey. Oh, it's so hard because
Hard.
I don't know. I like to wake up in the morning being liked by people. That's just
Right. Yeah.
you are
Well,
brag away. Let's brag away a little bit more.
oh
You're definitely on the move. What are some really exciting initiatives that you have in play at PCC at the moment?
Well, I mean, one of the things that we have that's exciting is our 2025 to 2028 strategic planning. And one of the reasons why I'm excited about it is because we had so many of our employees and a great proportion of our students participate in informing that, and then more recently participate in narrowing down the strategic goals that we'll ultimately recommend to the board. And so I'm excited about it, not just because it's strategic planning, even though the nerdy side of me is like, oh my gosh, strategic planning, goals, objectives, key metrics, indicators. But the other side is it was something that was built in a collaborative and meaningful way where to the extent that we could and tried as much as possible, brought in the full college community to be a part of that process.
Yeah. So good. So good.
Yeah.
Well, we have not really talked about I think what makes you intensely interesting. I don't know what percentage of the world's population can say that they, are or have been a professional athlete, but you're decorated, a decorated athlete. You own the space also as a certified peer reviewer, correct? You go and you help others establish and identify where those standards are. What's bringing that athlete's mindset
Yeah.
as one who needs to get up every morning and refine your skills as an athlete? What's
Yeah.
bringing that into the organizational space in terms of continuous improvement?
Oh my goodness. Just being an athlete has taught me so many things. I did athletics from 6th grade, high school, college, professionally. And some of the things that are really embedded into my DNA are the principles of, you might be in this as in your soul event, you might be one person, but you need each and every one around you to be a part of that team. And so that's why I have this motto, if you will, this philosophy that's one together, together one. Like I'm
Yeah.
just one person, but it takes each of us. It takes my team. It takes the faculty. It takes the staff. It takes each of us pulling together, carrying forward our roles and responsibilities to really fulfill our mission. So there's the team thing. There's the understanding of we won't always have wins. I'm highly competitive, which my team gets to experience some of that behind the scenes. And I carry this from the standpoint of an athlete that, each day I show up is an opportunity to do better. And just because I might not have accomplished something that I set out to do that day doesn't mean that I lost. It means that there's something else for me to work towards tomorrow. And so there's some of that as well. And then there's also from the athletic mindset, this third thing that I find very helpful for me as a president is that I learned very quickly in track and field that you will sometimes have boos in the crowd, people who are not cheering for you. You'll have those who are cheering for you. And so I had to learn very quickly, and I carry this with my team that our work, you as a person, if you thrive on validation by people, you'll lose very quickly, you'll fail very quickly. But if you thrive on fulfilling the mission and really digging into what's within you to help bring that forward, that's where you win. And so the validation aspect is something you have to learn very quickly in athletics. It's like when you step out on that track, or when I step into the office or any area that I am as president, it's about how I show up. And not everyone in that space, whether they verbalize it or think I know or don't know, they may not support me, but it's what does Adrien think of Adrien? And so
Mhm.
that's where I win all the time.
Oh, that is so attractive to, and that builds the right kind of culture then as
Mhm.
well, to say, "Hey, we are doing everything within our absolute power to be resolute,
Right,
resolutely committed, not to
right.
my preferences, not to your preferences way up there
Yeah,
in the stands, right? To
yeah.
the preferences that we came together and established,
Hmm.
whenever that was, to say, "We are here
Yeah,
because," right?
yeah,
And wow, yeah, that just, I'm getting goosebumps. Well, you've got a bright future in front of you. You as a leader, but I think also PCC as an institution, when many are really struggling in the space of staying in
yeah,
demand, right? Staying profitable, all the things on the business side. And I know you understand that as well. What are some, as you look over the next couple of years, your plan extends through 28, right? 25 through
yes,
28. What are some of the top priorities? Um, PCC is committed to uh, crossing those finish lines, right?
yeah, yeah.
In the next few years.
Well, some of the priorities are we've had to think differently around, for years our enrollment was declining. We've had to think differently around enrollment strategies. And so I envision as we move forward, building enrollment, but at the same time, a priority is that holistic student support, that wraparound services. How do we meet the students where they are? And I have had conversations with my team. A lot of colleges, and spaces that I'm in, we talk about being, our students being college ready, but how do we shift that and say, where and in what ways is PCC student ready? And how can we prepare ourselves to improve upon how we serve the students and make resources available for them to succeed? So that's one of the visions. Another vision, and I'll share real quickly, is when it comes to our college, large in size, finances and fiscal resources, our budget is a key priority. We just launched our fiscal sustainability plan. And what that will do is it gives us a 6 year or three biennium, because we budget in bienniums, a lookout of a targeted goal for our ending fund balance, our cash reserves, contingency funds, and to say, okay, how we're positioned today based on the state funding or other external factors. What does our future look like so that we can continue to be able to serve? So, fiscal sustainability is going to be an ever increasing topic and an ever increasing responsibility of the college. And then the last thing is, because we have C, a community in the middle of our name. And
Mhm.
how are we connecting with the community in ways that we haven't thought of before? And how are we reaching within our communities of color, our youth, and connecting with business and industry, and then across the region, immigrant families and their children, and creating opportunities for them. And so there's just a chasm, if you will, of things to consider and envision as we move forward. But those are some of the things that come top of mind as I think about it in this space.
Whew, we're gonna keep tracking you. Keep
Yeah.
tracking you. We're gonna wrap up here. I pulled a quote from you. The day you stop learning, you gonna finish that?
Well, I say so many quotes, so you have to.
It's when you quit living, right? When we
Oh
stop
yeah.
learning, we're done
Yeah.
living.
Yeah.
You may have quoted me a few times, but that's one that is just bolded in my memory
Yeah.
of something that
Yeah.
you have shared. Your peers are tuned in today, and many of them don't quite have the experience, maybe don't have the boldness that you've had, maybe haven't had the success trajectory that you've had as well. You've had other people giving you good pep talks. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's flip the mic. Now it's your turn. What encouraging advice, what wisdom, what insight would you give somebody that's running hard, lifting heavy things, trying to transform their
Yeah.
organization today in the face of some headwinds?
Right. Well, it's here's what I would say. It's human nature to always think of, oh my gosh, what's the worst that can happen type of mindset. But I would challenge and encourage anyone listening to this show to think and re-engineer their thoughts to say, what's the best that could happen? Let that be
Mm,
your first thought. Like, what's the best that could happen? And then watch things start to shift. And if you start to shift that in your thoughts, you start to shift it in your mindset. If you start to shift that in your mindset, you start to shift that in the way that you think. And then it translates into your behaviors, and then it spreads like wildfire to your teams. And so that's, what's the best that could happen? And that's hard because I've had a few hiccups day in and day out, especially when days don't go according to plan.
yeah. Yeah, it's taking captive that mind of yours to say,
Yeah.
what is the best thing that could actually I love that. I
Yeah.
hope folks that you're writing that down because that's worth the price of your admission to this
Mhm.
podcast. Adrian, thank you. Dr. B, thank you so
Well,
much.
thank you.
You are you are modeling the elite way. You really are. And you've inspired my heart. And I think the hearts of our folks tuning in. We've covered just a smidge. We could probably spend another half a day just talking through your experiences. But seriously, folks, PCC is it's an organization. It's a campus on the move. It's large, but it's very very focused because
Yeah.
it has the right leader, right? That is doing the right work with the right team. We
Yeah.
haven't talked about your team yet, but you have put together just an amazing group of humans, right, that
Yeah.
are also nearing elite status, right?
Well,
You can find you on pcc.edu, I believe
correct.
that's the
Yeah.
website. Yes, yes. Did you have one final thought, comment?
I just had a final thought just because you talked about using the term elite. And I just, I honored to hear you use that in this space as you speak of me. But I wanted to share with anyone listening that, to be elite, as I am, you have to be perfectly imperfect. And
Mm,
that's what I understand about myself. And I give grace to myself, and you also have to take care of yourself. And so, just understanding the word elite comes with some responsibilities on your side as well.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Great punctuation to our time together. Hey,
yeah,
before we wrap up, if you found value in today's little jam session, take a moment, do what the kids do, hit that like button and leave a comment, right? Share the episode with people that you care about as well. And you can subscribe to our YouTube channel because your engagement really helps us to reach more leaders across this continuum of being able to hear from some of the greatest minds in education. So until next time, this is Dr. Joe on purpose to cancel all things average, right? Peace, friends, and press on.